My dude, John David Mann is one of my favorite human beings. Love his books. Just the value he brings is huge. But what I really enjoyed about this episode is, while most of the things he talks about are being an author, that's his perspective, and the different things, the mindset and the actions and the decide to do something. All those things are very much applicable to his career as an author, but it's applicable to life. It's applicable to being a parent, to the businesses that we're running. As an entrepreneur, this is a must listen because it gets into the importance of that mindset of doing, right? Of getting out of your own way and doing something about it, and getting that book, whether it's a book, a business, or whatever it is, getting that out there into the world and having the best possible version out there.
Yeah, man. And also just the idea of being willing to pay for coaching or to be willing to pay for a community. It's just going to shorten your timeline so much, right? You can do it on your own, but it's going to take probably twice as long. There's going to be way more failures, and it's not going to be as good, right? You're not going to be as good unless you get over this mindset of trying to do it all on your own and like be a part of a community or a group or a coaching, get some coaching. It's going to make you better and get you further faster. So this is a great one. Go listen.
Giddy up. You're listening to Filling the Storehouse podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Stuart, and we want to walk with you on the journey to living the abundant life through faith, family, and freedom. Our goal is to refine our why while helping you find yours. Together, achieve our best and highest purpose. In the end, we'll drive each other to intentionally fill our storehouse.
We have today John David the Man back on our show.
Well, no, I think it's newly hyphenated. John David Man -myth -legend, right? Like, did you hyphenate and just to get it all in there?
Oh,
yeah. I mean, this singer guy, John Legend, he kind of stole my thunder there. It's my idea. John Legend. Anyway.
John, I think you are the top guest, like a number of showings now on our podcast. So congratulations.
Thank you. It is.
I know.
It is thrilling to be honored for the fact that I talk a lot.
No, you write a lot. You write a lot. Yeah, which is incredible. Before we started recording here, you've been busy. You've been cranking out some books, which is amazing. I'm impressed.
Sir Lancelot.
Yeah. Well, let's just get this started off with telling us what you've been up to lately.
Yes, you bet. Well, as the more perceptive viewers among you may have picked up from my background, there's some books going on here.
There's some books going on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just about to come out with the third book of the Chief Finn series, which is my thriller series, which is a whole new career, whole new world for me to be writing thrillers after decades of writing like business books and parables and books about lovely, nice people saying lovely, nice things and being with other lovely, nice people. And now I've got like chasing serial killers in the middle of ice storms, and it's pretty interesting. And so book 3, every Finn book takes place in a fascinating environment. The first book, Steel Fear, was on an aircraft carrier, which, as you guys know, is like the most bizarre environment that most people have never experienced. It's like Empire State Building lying on its side, stuck with 6,000 people, bottled up and stuck on the ocean for 6 months. Then the next book took place in Iceland, and book 3 happens in Puerto Rico in the middle of a hurricane. So that's what's going on behind me. So that's the Finn series. I've got another parable coming out. Nice people, although the hero of this particular parable is not so nice, actually. So that's been fun. That's coming out in a couple months, and I'm doing this writing program, an online 1-year program for people who want to write a book. So it's a lot of things, a lot of balls to juggle in the air.
Well, and for our listeners that potentially hadn't heard the previous episodes with you, just a quick recap. So John also wrote an amazing book, and why we initially had you on the podcast was for The Go-Giver, right? Which is I felt that to be a transformative book in my life personally, and the principles that came from that book. Amazing book. The Still Fear and Cold Fear were two that I credit directly for a significant loss of sleep due to not being able to put them down. Awesome books. I can't wait for Blind Fear to come out. Incredible books. And then you're co-authoring, and this is just a smattering, right? I've read How to Write Gooder was an excellent book. I'm picking up I just got Latte. I'm
the
brain
Latte
farting
Factor.
on the Latte Factor. Thank you. The Latte Factor. So I've got that at home as my next read. And then this book that's coming out that you mentioned, you co-authored with Dan, who we've previously, the Leadership Freak, we had him on a previous podcast as well. So, I mean, just tons of extremely rich content. And last podcast, we talked about the importance of reading not just books like Go Giver and these more maybe business centric books, but fiction, just pure fiction, just to get the brain going, to get the juices flowing, to get that other part of your brain working. So prolific author, incredible human being. And then maybe your best claim to fame is you married Anna Man, and you guys co-authored a book, The Go Giver Marriage, which again, amazing book. And so I want to make sure our listeners understand the prolific nature of how many books you've truly written and how much value that you guys add. It's huge.
And also the significance of my insignificance in relationship to my spouse. Yeah. At the end of my biography on Amazon, it says he considers himself the luckiest man, M-A-N-N, in the world. And I do, because marrying her was the smartest decision I ever made. So we'll spend the next 45 minutes talking about her.
Yeah, if you could just bring her on, that'd be great.
I'll tell you what, I have referenced the Go Giver Marriage so many times when thinking about just current situations that I have in my life, or trying to maybe offer advice to other men inside our mastermind group. And we tell every man in our mastermind group, like, hey, when we're talking about family and we're talking about intimacy and romance and marriage, like, this is the book you need to read. We reference it so many times.
That. I mean, it's like everybody in Go Giver Marriage, the principles in there also can apply to any relationship, like with colleagues, with buddies, with friends, with employees, with your kids, with your parents. But in relation to marriage, I mean, it's like everybody wants their marriage to be fantastic, right? And everybody has experienced that on some level when they were first courting, or everybody wants it to be a certain way. But it's a question like, how do you make that happen? What are the everyday steps you take to make that happen? I mean, where's the button I can push? What flowers can I buy to make this incredible? What movie can I take my date to? And it's like, I think that's what the book really addresses, is what does it look like on an everyday basis to build lasting love, everlasting love? It is a practice. It's not a magic wand.
Yeah, for sure. It's been powerful for me, for sure. Well, I'm curious, can you give us just a little sneak preview of what Blind Fear is about, and then also what The Vagrant is about? So
okay, awesome.
Keep our listeners ready to buy.
So different, these two books. It's really funny too, because in a way, a thriller and a parable are almost like at the opposite ends of the spectrum of fiction, because the thriller is complicated, right? You got all these complications and twists and turns and subplots and stuff that all has to wrap up at the end. And a parable is kind of the ultimate in simplicity. But anyway, so Blind Fear, some of you maybe know the first two books and some don't, but the hero is this guy, Chief Finn, who is a Navy SEAL, active duty Navy SEAL, although you wouldn't know it at this point in the series, because he's AWOL. He's a fugitive from justice. He is a troubled guy. He has holes in his memory, which is particularly painful because he's legendary for his memory. I mean, snipers, he's a Navy SEAL sniper, and snipers are first and foremost an intelligence asset. Snipers are trained particularly as reconnaissance agents, more so than being sharpshooters. Yeah, they're sharpshooters, but it goes way beyond that. So the ability to observe everything, take in all this detail, and remember everything is what he's known for. And he's got holes in his memory that are cropped up. In book one, we learned about that. So this guy has been accused of war crimes that he didn't commit, or at least he's pretty sure he didn't commit. He's not completely positive. And he's got holes in his memory in relation to his parents and his childhood, and why was his best friend killed and who killed him. All this mystery that is him to himself. He's been trying to unravel the mystery that is he for all three books. But he's also, of course, because it's a thriller, embroiled in the current crime. It was a serial killer on an aircraft carrier in book one. It was a girl who mysteriously drowned in the middle of downtown Reykjavik on Christmas Eve in a frozen pond. It was in ice in Cold Fear. In Blind Fear, Finn is hiding out on Vieques, a beautiful little island off the coast of Puerto Rico. And he's working, nobody knows who he is. He works for a little chef, a blind chef who runs a little seafood restaurant with his grandchildren. And his grandchildren go missing. Very first, boom, prologue of the book. The two kids are out playing on the beach and they go missing. And Finn spends the whole book looking for these two kids. Why he's so attached to them, he doesn't even understand. And we also get to see the kids themselves on the run and trying to escape some very seriously bad guys. Going through the jungle, there is all of the center of Puerto Rico is a gigantic tropical rainforest. And not many people fully appreciate that, because you think Puerto Rico, you think beaches, right? But yeah, in the middle of the island is covered with miles and miles and miles of this incredible tropical rainforest. And the kids, get lost in the middle of that with the wildlife and the threats and the terror and all of that. So that was really fun to write. And then, of course, a hurricane comes at the end. And Finn is trying to escape the law and escape these people and those people, and also find the kids and chase down the bad guys. And a hurricane is threatening to blow the whole island of Kingdom Come. So it was really fun to write.
That sounds awesome.
When is that going to be released?
July 18.
July 18. All right.
I'm going on tour.
Right.
I'm going to Southern California, Texas, St. Louis, Nashville, Manhattan. I'm going as many places as I can to meet.
Now, I just want to say, when we had the same conversation,
Colorado,
Colorado, what's up?
And I missed you next year. I missed you last year by like a week. I think you were in Dallas or Waco.
Yeah, both.
And I was coming to Texas to see our family, and it was like a week too late. So maybe I can try to time it.
Hey, I'm going to be in both Dallas and Waco again this year.
Okay. Do you know when in Dallas?
I do. I know exactly when, but I can't remember.
All right.
I can tell you where to see it. It's on the website. The website is Web and Man. It's 2 B's in web and 2 N's in man.
Okay.
WBBANDMANN.com. And there's a little menu item that says Tour 23.
Okay.
And that gives all the dates and locations.
All right.
Anyhow, that's Blind Fear. It was a gas. It was a blast to write. It's also, I think in the way it's the most personal of the 3 books so far. In the first book, Finn gradually realizes that he's been separated from his team, and something really bad just went down in Yemen, and a lot of people were slaughtered, and he doesn't know if he was part of it or not. So his big question in book 1 is, what the hell just happened here? His big question in book 2 is, who killed my best friend, Lieutenant Kennedy? His big question in book 3 is, why can't I remember my parents' faces? And so in many ways, his search for these kids, which is hair-raising, is also a sort of a search for his childhood. It's like, why doesn't he have a last name, Finn X? Why doesn't he remember what his parents looked like? Anyway, it was really fun to write, very, very personal book.
I'm just curious, like when, this is a 3-book series so far, and I'm just curious, like when you wrote the first book, did you have an idea and a plan for book 2 and 3, like in the back of your mind or already written down? Like, it just seems like, no, you don't.
No.
That's interesting.
We wrote book 1, and the way the book business works is if you write a nonfiction book, like a book on leadership or a book on sales or, your memoir or whatever, you book a nonfiction book, you write a chapter or 2, a sample chapter, an outline, chapter summaries, you present a proposal to a publisher. They buy it. They give you an advance, and then the advance is like, here's some money, go write the book now. And work that way for fiction. For fiction, you got to write the entire thing. You got to write it, proofread it, finesse it, revise it, improve it, make it as perfect as you possibly can, and then you try to go sell it. So pragmatically speaking, that means for Steal Fear, Brandon and I had to produce this book, which took me 2 years, without a penny, without any promise of publication, no contracts, no advances, no deal, no nothing, just like writing on spec. We hope this works, hope and a prayer. When we sold it to Bantam, they said they wanted a 2-book deal. So boom, and we were hoping it would be a series. We thought Finn justified a series. So boom, right away, we had to write a second book, and blank slate. At the end of book 2 of Cold Fear, there's a little epilogue which takes place in Vieques, although it's not really clear if it's really happening or if it's Finn's dream, because he's been dreaming about Vieques. And so it's a little bit of an entree into book 3, but I still had no idea what was going to happen in book 3. I just knew it was going to start in Vieques. That's all I knew. So, well,
and I think, one of the things we talked about that we were going to jump in here, and before we talk about the next book, I wanted to just touch on this, but I love the idea and just the nature of how these things work, right? And it's not just being an author, it's not writing books, but it's the fact that you take action. Like everybody always talks about, a lot of people talk about, oh, I need to be inspired, I'm motivated. And my argument is no, you need want is what you need to get past, I wish and all this aspirational stuff to the point of action, right? That you're doing something about it, that you want it so bad that you're going to do something. And then you find yourself potentially in a position where, oh, shoot, I succeeded. My book was sold, bought, whatever. And now I have another one, and now I got to get writing. Right. And so if you don't mind touching on that, I love this whole idea of writer's block and inspiration and all that. I think is kind of hogwash in the sense of like you have to do something, and then that leads, action begets action, and exactly. That's a cycle.
Yeah. A friend recently asked, so how does this writing thing work? You sit down to write when the inspiration strikes? And I like, no, I sit down to write when the alarm clock goes off. I sit down with a blank pad of paper and a pen, and I have no idea what the fill in your word I'm doing this morning. And maybe 30 minutes goes by and things start to click. But it's like, you got to put your butt in the seat and make the plan. Brandon and I did a book together called Mastering Fear before this series, nonfiction. And it was basically a book that aimed to reduce our strategies, Brandon's strategy in the military and in the business world. And I echo that in my own entrepreneurial experience. Our strategy for dealing with the fears that stop us in our lives. And it's not about how to conquer your fear or how to overcome your fear. It's about how to harness your fear. It's about how to make your fear an ally. Because that which you fight against gets stronger. Obi-Wan Kenobi told us that. He probably wasn't the first. So in Mastering Fear, we reduced I had to kind of reverse engineer how Brandon's brain works. And I reduced it to a 5-step formula. And the first step is called decide. And decision comes first. You make a decision, I'm going to write a book. Knowing I don't know how to do that. I don't even know what it's about. I don't know if it's going to work, if anybody's going to buy it, if anybody's going to read it, if I'll go broke trying. I don't know any of those things, but I make a decision. I'm going to do this. Now, the next steps follow through that. And I think that has a lot to do with what you're saying. Writing is very intentional. Writing isn't something that just like bubbles out of you. You go look at Amadeus, the movie, and you see this kid Mozart, and music is just bubbling out of him. There are freaks of nature like that. But mostly the rest of us are mere mortals, where it doesn't just bubble out. Or if it does, what bubbles out is pretty worthless. It's not anything anybody would want to publish. So to me, it starts with the decision. I'm going to do this. I'm going to write a novel. I'm going to write a thriller. I'm going to write a parable. I'm going to write a. And by the way, I don't think there's any value to say I'm going to sit down and write a bestseller. There are teachers who do that. My opinion is, I think that's hogwash. Sitting down and saying I'm going to write a bestseller is sitting down and saying here's how the world is going to respond to me. I can't control that. I can do the best work that I can do. I'm going to write a book that my wife will be proud of. That I know I can do. And, you know, if it sells, then bully world.
Yeah, I love that. I love the decide and then really to take control of what you can take control of, right? Like
Yeah.
how people react is not my responsibility. My responsibility is to do the best that I can in the moment, to put as much as I can. And I agree with you. I think Hollywood kind of tends to make things appear a lot easier, a lot more glamorous than they really are. Because at the end of the day, it boils down to a lot of the things that we do. And it's not just writing, right? It's
Yes.
building a business. It's creating a mastermind. It's
is.
all these things that we do. When you first do it, it's probably going to be kind of like if we go back and listen to our first, 15 podcasts, I mean, compared to now, they're kind of garbage, right? I mean, I don't want to say garbage, but they just were not, they were not refined. We're just starting out, but ultimately, you get 200 episodes in. I'm not saying we're great, but it's not, it's second nature now, and we can get better on a much higher platform. And it's just, I think that's how it works. That's how it should work. And that's what makes it worthwhile.
You're on the path. You're on that path.
Well, and something else that came to mind, John, when you were talking about this decision, right? Like taking action and deciding. We actually were in a conversation just recently in one of our groups in our mastermind, and we were talking about looking at your life and figuring out where, like, we make them write their eulogy, and then look back at their kind of backwards plan from their eulogy and look at what gaps you have in your life currently, and then take action on that. And a lot of the men in the group, like, their excuse or their reasoning for doing something, not doing something, was just like, I just have to do it. I just have to do it. And like David like spoke up, like, stop saying I just have to do it.
Yeah.
And actually go do it. Like, decide and they take action and go do it instead of just saying I have to do it. Right. And I've been prone to that as well.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. It's
sometimes words are a way of avoiding action.
Totally. And so, I'm curious, you are now helping others write, and you've got this new coaching and training program going on. And how does that, like, push people? Because I think, for us, it's accountability, right? It's having you tell somebody that you want to go do this thing, and then that person that you told holds you accountable to it. And I think that's the same for, a coaching program, a training program. You have someone like yourself, the coach, teaching others how to do it, but you're holding them accountable to then go do it. So tell us about that. Like, what is this, writing coaching program that you've started?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny about the accountability and that whole thing you were describing about mindset, because it's, I have this program, this coaching program. It's a 1-year online training program for people who want to write a book. And some of the people in the program have already written books. I got one guy who's got 2 award-winning books out, and I've got people who've never written a book. But there are a lot of people in the world who would like to write a book, always kind of wanted to write a book, or feel like I've got a book inside me somewhere, but don't know where to start, or haven't made the decision to start, or doesn't, life is too busy right now for whatever reason, 1,000 reasons. It hasn't happened yet. The purpose of this program is to give people a forum, a floor to sit on, a place to stand on, to say, I'm going to do it now. And I'm going to get the support that I need. I'm going to get the know-how that I need. I'm not going to write their book for them, but I'm there to give them the tools and the community and the support. And the community part is really important. It's a series of trainings that I do on video that are like being in a classroom, basically. And then it is a series, in addition to that, we do twice a week group coaching calls. It's twice a week, not because people need that much, but because people sometimes can't make it this time or that time. So twice a week, I'm on Zoom coaching whoever shows up in the program, and whatever issues going on with their writing right now. And but the third aspect, the third dimension, there's the training, there's the coaching. Third is community, and that's each other. We got a whole online community environment for them, where there's discussion and questions and answers and shared experiences and so on. And that, I think, is something I wish I'd known 20 years ago. Honestly, I wish I'd known this 20 years ago, was how important it is for a writer. You can transpose this to any profession, I'm sure, but as a writer, how important it is, particularly because it's kind of a solitary profession, to get to know other writers, to have a community of other writers. It's like so valuable. It's not just a matter of getting connections like networking, so that maybe I can get a leg up because they know somebody that I need to know. It's also a question of knowing their experience and sharing their how it hits them. A tremendous amount of the writing process is there is skill sets, there is know-how, there is technique, and we get into all of that. But a tremendous amount of the writing process is mindset. It's just mindset. Most of what stops people from writing their book to the potential that it could be, from putting their book out, not just as a book, but as a great book, of having the book reach its full flowering where it should be. So many books come out in the marketplace and they're just like, they're not that good. And they could be, because the idea behind them is valuable, is great. The biggest thing that stops people from realizing the potential of their book is their mindset, is themselves. It's also what stops people from even starting, from even doing it. And here's the secret. Highly successful writers, famous writers, New York Times best-selling writers, household name authors like Jim Patterson or Lee Child or whoever, same with them. They have those demons of self-doubt every day. They deal with those mindset issues every day. They've just become really skillful at how they deal with those mindset issues. That's a big part of the program.
I love that, John. And I think you hit on a number of huge key points. One, I think the coaching and the community part, which are both things that Stu and I are extremely passionate about, and you obviously are too. It's what it can do is significantly shorten your timeline, right? And there's all these objections that people come up with, like, wow, man, I don't want to pay to be coached or be in a community. Awesome. So how much longer is your book going to be to come out, right? Like how much time are you willing to spend, if ever, right? How important is this to you? And is this investment in coaching? Is this investment in a community? Is that going to get you where you want to be quicker? And is that worth it? In my experience, and Stu and I have paid for a bunch of coaching and a bunch of communities. And I'll tell you, it absolutely pours jet fuel on the process and gets you to where you want to be, because it's not just the accountability. It's also the perspectives, right? And Stu and I, he mentioned accountability, but one of my favorite things that we do with every single topic, the first week of every topic, is reflect. And what reflect is, it's everybody in the group giving their perspective on that topic. And so that just completely opens and broadens your horizon to things. And I'll tell you, every single reflect week, without exception, you hear the words, I never thought of that before, every time. And so that can open your mind to something you've never thought about and considered, and potentially changes your life. And so, when you talk about getting coached by John David Mann and a group of other people who are in different phases of writing, and the perspective, sometimes even the newest writer has a perspective that the more seasoned people are like, because they have a completely different aperture. And so this idea of coaching a community, I love how you highlighted that. It not only, if 20 years ago, who knows if 20 years ago you knew or had this mindset, where you'd be today, right? But the point is, who's now listening and saying, is in the jeopardy of being 20 years from now being like, oh man, I wish 20 years ago. Well, now you heard it, right? Yeah. If you have a book inside you, there are things that you can do to get that book out and make it something amazing, which I think everybody has.
The challenge of it is that in today's environment, and this has been true for easily a decade, it's physically, logistically so easy to publish a book. This was not true 20 years ago. But today, anybody can publish a book, very little effort. There's courses out there saying, I can show you how to publish your book in 10 days. And they're right, they can. Because you can put it up on Amazon, you can make it a Kindle book, you can even get a hardcover print book for not too much stress and trouble. But 95% of those books are garbage. They're just kind of crap. They're not that great. And it's, to me, it's a tragedy. I see people that I know send me their books and says, "Oh, I send you a copy of my book," and I get a copy of the book and I open it in the mail and I look at it. It's like my heart falls, because I instantly know that this could have been a great book, and it's just not.
It's just not.
It's just not, because they wrote it in a vacuum. They wrote it without that perspective. They wrote it doing their best, which is all any of us can do on our own. But in a community, or with coaching from somebody who's really been down that road, you can take it and raise it to a level. I'll tell you, there have been my writing career has not been a steady incline. And what I mean by my skill set has not improved by a steady incline. Look back through my career, there have been a few moments, like 3 or 4, where I've gone, zoop, 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 and just jumped in the level of my, I'll just say, skill, in the level of my quality of my writing. And every one of those moments was where I had a great teacher or coach or editor, which are all the same thing for me in the world of writing, who has taken something I've written and shown me how it could be so much better. And that's what a great editor does. That's what a good coach can do, can help you become the writer that you should be. And, like I said, to me, it's a tragedy to see the self-published books come out that just really aren't that good when they could be. And that's a big part of the reason that I'm doing the program. I want people to put their book out, but I want them to put it out and be all that it could be.
That's awesome.
Hey, sounds like a recruiting slogan.
That's be all you can be.
Have your book be all you can be.
David, what you were saying earlier about coaching and being a part of a group, it reminds me of this quote, and I wrote it down. I heard it from a businessman, Alex Hormozy. I don't know if you've heard of him, John, but he says that the reason that I've been able to move quickly through life and found success is because I was willing to buy other people's mistakes. It's the only way that you can buy time. And so if you think about that, from a coaching perspective and a training program, like if I want to write a book, like I can figure it out on my own. I can go self-publish, right? And like you said, it's not going to be that good. Yeah. But if I'm willing to buy someone else's mistakes, i.e. John David Mann's, multitude of books that he's written and the time that you've spent on that and all the lessons learned and the knowledge that you've created over time, if I'm willing to buy that, that's going to shorten my timeline tremendously, right?
I did this program, one of the presentations, one of the lessons, if you want to call it, a few weeks ago. And there was like 40, 50 slides in the course of that evening's training. And you get the slides as PDFs after they're all as downloads. You can kind of accumulate this textbook as you go. And at the end of it, I had some Q&A, and one person said, "Oh, I tell you, I just can't stop thinking about that slide." And the slide she pointed out was somewhere back in the middle of it. It was one set of 2 slides that showed the first page of the Go-Giver in its original form, its first draft, with all of the editor's marks all over it. Whole paragraphs crossed out, words moved around, words changed, new stuff stuck in. It was like it was like, some kind of makeover TV show. And then the second slide showed the result, how it looked. It was the before and after, basically. It showed the new paragraph. The first page had this much text. The second page had about this much text. And then on the side of the 2 pages, on the first one, it said 22 rejections. That book was rejected by 22 publishers. And the second one, it said over 1 million copies sold. And that's the difference.
Love that.
First,
I love that.
The second. And it was funny that was like in the whole presentation. I said lots of other stuff, but that was what stuck in this person's mind, because that's the heart of it. That's the leap in, and most people who have any interest in writing at all have read the book by Stephen King on writing. And if anybody's interested in writing and they haven't read that book, it's a really good idea to read it. It's very accessible. It's extremely popular. And one of the things that's the coolest things about it really stuck in my head the first time I read it years and years ago, is at the end of the book, he shows you the first few pages of a story he wrote, just like that. That was my inspiration. In fact, he shows the first draft, all his marks on it, and you get to see how he turned it from something that was like a good idea but not done that well into something that was a good idea and done really well. So yeah, it's like I was so impressed with his generosity in bearing his ugly stuff, showing how, as you said, everybody who bought that book got to buy Stephen King's mistakes. And it's like, I think it's the most popular book on writing there is out there. It's the one everybody always refers to. That's a big part of why.
Well, and my mind goes to some of the conversations of, we were talking about the retreat we just had, and some of the men that showed up there and talked with other dudes in person. What was really interesting, and we've seen this in other forums in our group, but it's like real estate, for example. Like I'll be like, man, I'm really interested in real estate, and he'll sit next to a guy at the table that has done over 600 deals. And he now has the opportunity to talk to that guy, and it just, you can see, like, it's not a light bulb. It is like bing, 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 the light bulbs everywhere. Cause like, dude, I just never realized I had access to this. Right. And so when you were talking about, my mind goes to somebody who's in your course. Well, you said there's been 4 or 5 different times in your career that you've jumped. Well, now somebody can, instead of doing 4 jumps, they talk to you, and they could potentially jump 5 John David Mann jumps in a session, in a year, or whatever that looks like. And the power of that, right? The power of that is, and you usually don't get that unless you're investing in yourself to be to be surrounded by that. Cause it reminds me of that, famous Picasso story where he did the doodle.
Yes.
He did a doodle in a cafe, right? He did a doodle, and then he, on a napkin, kind of crumpled it up and was going to throw it away. And somebody wanted to go grab it. And they're like, hey, can I have that? And he goes, sure. It'd be $20,000. And he's like, you just did that. You just did that in 5 minutes on a napkin. He goes, no, this has been in the works for 20 years.
Right.
This doodle has been in the works for 20 years. And I butchered the story slightly, but
I didn't know the story. I love it. I like your version.
But the point is that it's these skills that are not, and when you go to your course, it's not a course. It's decades and decades of writing and being in this process, and you have access to that immediately. And I love one other thing you said, the generosity of the community. What we've also seen, there's no judgment when you're typically surrounding yourself with people trying to be better in this realm. I mean, I imagine if someone puts a crap, manuscript together, you're not looking at it and you're like, oh, this is crap, you throw it away. Like, you're giving like very productive feedback, and that person is growing. Nobody's judging them, right? Like, it is a safe environment.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a rule. Actually, there's kind of 2 rules in the critique. We have a whole section of the online community called the critique forum. People can put up a piece of writing and have it critiqued. But I urge people to use it with great care. Don't put anything up until you're ready for that, because it's really important when you're writing not to show your work too soon, when it's still formative. Stephen King says, write the first draft with the door closed and the second draft with the door open. His very first employer ever told him that when he was a teenager, and it's like still really good advice. But we do have this forum, and the rules of the community are love first, suggestion second. And what I've noticed, I've had a lot of editors over the years, because every time I work with a publisher, there's an editor involved. They're really, really skillful editors. They have so much to offer. They have so much to say. In so many ways, they can make this book so much better. They always start, you get a thing when you have a manuscript going through the publication process. The editors talk with you back and forth about the first time that they actually get the whole manuscript to read it. They'll take a week or 2 and they'll read the manuscript, and then they send you what is called an editorial letter. And that editorial letter is their statement, basically their map of what they think the book needs from here on. How to fix the thing is what it is. And the editorial letter starts out with a paragraph or 2 or 3 about what I love about this story. I got that with Blind Fear. I got that with every one of these books. Here's what it is so fantastic. I think this is great. This is great. I love how you did this. I love how this happens. I did not see this coming. This is fabulous. Then come a few, many more paragraphs, but they're much shorter. Like if there are 2 or 3 what I love paragraphs, there might be like a dozen or 15. Here's what I think could be a little different paragraphs. And those might be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. They're shorter. And then there's 1,000 little ground level observations, editorial points, changing this word to that, questioning this. And that doesn't even go in the letter. That's just markings in the manuscript itself. And that's the sequence for me. That's the sequence for correcting a child. That's the sequence for editing a manuscript. That's the sequence for mentoring an entrepreneur. It starts with what I think is fantastic about you, and it has to be real, has to be sincere. You need to have the skills to be able to see in this pile of manuscript pages, to see the gold, to see the diamonds. And just like you do have to see that in your child. When they're misbehaving and they're a mess and they're all over the place, you've got to be able to see the gold in there and say, tell them about what is, you know what I love about you? You are so kind to other kids. Or you know what I love about you? You are so dog in a bone. When you want something, you really go after it. Or whatever it is. First, what I love. Then suggestions. And then finally, actual editorial, markups. It's like, okay, yeah, let me just comb your hair. And I tie your shoe a little differently. Whatever. And it's like, if you go to critique something and you go in first with, I don't think the main character quite works for me. Boom, it's over. Number one, I will never trust you again. You will never see a manuscript of mine again. And furthermore, you've now made me doubt my own book. I have a series of what I call my 7 writers' mantras that I give people, which are just mindset reminders that I've found, refrains I've found myself repeating over and over again to keep myself out of the soup when I'm writing. And one of those is, trust that your core idea is sound. Now, there may be all kinds of crap going on with my characters and my subplot and the way this chapter is, but trust, don't doubt your core idea. You may not have it nailed down. Your book may be about something a little different than what you thought it was about. You may find your plot may be off the rails, and but there is an idea in there that you're looking to find, you're trying to nail down, that's really powerful, and it's exactly right. This is the same thing that's true about your life, about you as a person. Trust that your core idea is sound. You may be totally screwed up in your application of that, or in your pursuit of that, or in your expression of that. You may be in the middle of a maelstrom because you're trying to figure it all out. But never doubt that who you are is perfection, is perfect. It's just the way it should be. It's just the expression of that can get kind of wonky. And that's something I think a good coach can do for somebody, is remind them what's going on at the core, and then help lead them out of the wilderness to find it.
There's some great leadership lessons there, just on life. I love it. It's
hey, leadership in the military, huh, guys?
That's right.
Great leaders.
Been there, done that. David still has some lessons to learn.
I understand. But everyone needs a hand up, right?
That's right. That's why we started the mastermind group, so we can just put him around a whole lot of men that can lift him up.
I'm a big believer.
Well, and self-awareness and humility are also really good starting points, because oftentimes when you don't have those, you have lots of blind spots. But I'm not pointing fingers.
No, I wouldn't either. My wife sometimes tells me how impressed she is with my humility, and I always say the same thing back, which is, I know I am, in fact, quite impressed myself with my humility. My humility astounds even me sometimes.
That's right.
You're the most humble person you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie, right? It's like, I love it when people say, "I'm not going to lie." Well, that's a relief.
Yeah, that's a relief. Yeah.
Make sure you alert me when you change. When you change the program.
Yeah, right. Hey, tell us about The Vagrant. I'm really interested in this one because we had Dan Rockwell on. He's an amazing human being. We loved having him on our show.
Such a great guy. Such a fantastic human being.
I'm excited to get this one in my hands.
So Dan called me out of the blue. I'd never spoken with him. I knew him. He huge supporter of the Go Giver books. I knew him only through email, and I got a call from him. Actually, he emailed me, said, "Can we talk on the phone?" Set up a call. Got on the phone, and he said he had an idea for a parable. He wanted to run it by me, and he spun this basic starting scenario. It's a scenario you'll kind of find on page 1 and 2 of the book. And I immediately said, "Oh man, I am so in. I want to do this." So yeah, it's a parable that is about a young man named Bob, and I don't want to give spoilers here, but basically it's the first parable I've ever written in the first person, which means that like the character is telling the story. So Bob on page 1 is invited up to the 5th floor to management. He works for he has a sort of a middle management job in a hospital, in the healthcare system, and he's invited up to his boss's office. And he's like, "Promotion time, baby," and he's fired. And I call it a sort of a mashup of the Book of Job with Shawshank Redemption and a few other things. But it's the Job part of it is over the first part of the book, he loses his job, he loses his apartment, he loses his savings, he loses his respect, he loses his reputation, he loses everything, and he's a little bit arrogant. He's not an entirely likable character at first, and so it's a journey of redemption, really. Everything is stripped away, and it's what happens to him next is it gets us to a pretty dark place, and where he almost loses his life, and he's in a pretty bad place, and it has kind of an almost science fiction-y twist at the end. So it was really, really fun, really fun to write. We bill it as a leadership parable, and I think we quote on the first page, they're epigraphs, quotes that kind of are the godfathers of the book, the spirit of the book. The first is from Shawshank Redemption, Morgan Freeman saying, here's what he'd tell his 20-year-old self or his young self if he could see him, but I can't. That kid is long gone, and this old man is all that's left. Is that beautiful scene? And then there's a quote from the Book of Job, and then there's a quote from Warren Bennis, the great teacher of leadership who passed away a few years ago. And Warren's saying something like so I'm going to misquote it, but something like the challenge of leadership is to become yourself. It's that simple and that difficult. So that's really what the book's up to.
And what is the release date of that?
September something.
September something.
I'm going to say 19, but I could be making that up. It's somewhere in the middle of September.
My birthday is September 11th. So if there's any, desire for a gift or anything, I might be willing to receive that.
I'll have to immediately forget that. I mean, remember that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
They're both available, Blind Fear and also The Vagrant. They're both, you can find them on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and indie bookstores. They're there now. They're pre-orderable now, but it'll actually show up in your box or on the shelf in the middle of September.
That's great. I love it. We're I know you probably have an alarm set to start writing here in the next 10 minutes, but John, I am so grateful that you join us. I absolutely love every time we talk. It's, you always have a different book out, so obviously the conversation is different, but I'm just inspired by the fact that it's been interesting also to see your growth from the perspective of the author and putting out amazing books and impacting millions of lives. I mean, literally millions of lives with the content that you put out and the books you write, but also to now see, to see you grow into another different role of coaching and bringing people in and really fully, from my perspective, really seeing you realize just how much power is in all that experience and all that value and now pouring into others and enabling them to have access to you so that they can experience their own explosive growth and just the beauty and the magnificence of who you are, and to get that experience for themselves. So it's been, this last, I don't know, we were introduced, probably 2-3 years ago. I don't know what it's been, but it's just been an amazing journey just to see you and Anna and the amazing things you guys are doing. And it's quite humbling. And I'm just extremely, extremely excited for you and all the people that you're impacting, us obviously being huge fans and primary consumers of everything you put out. So love it. Absolutely love it.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. Can you say that again?
we haven't recorded.
It's recorded.
So I got to say thank you for all of that. And I've got to say, one of the reasons I love coming on the show with you guys, one thing I admire so much about you guys is sort of this path of reinvention that you've been on. You know, coming out of these illustrious careers in the military and coming in the civilian world, and not just going out and finding a job, which is fine, which is great. It's challenge enough for many people coming out of the military, but that you've come into this new world and you look for ways to totally reinvent who you are and what you do. I am such a big believer in believing in reinvention, the possibility of reinvention, because we're all reinventing ourselves anyway, whether we realize it or not. But to do so intentionally and, you know, with a courageous heart and a spirit of how can I bring more to the world, it's just, I admire that tremendously. So back to you.
Appreciate it. Well, we'll have to again say how much we've been blessed by your lovely wife, Anna. She has been a great mentor to us and given us some great ideas. So Anna, thank you. If you listen to this, John, pass word that we thank her. And you know, next time we'll have to get her on the show. You're awesome.
Yeah, appetizer, baby.
Yeah, we need to get on the show as well. Hey, John, where do we send people to get the latest books and find out more about your coaching program?
So johndavidmann.com.
Okay.
You can see, I mean, webandman.com has the book tour and is all things Chief Finn is basically that site. Plus, if you on that site, you can sign up for a newsletter, and every month they send you a new excerpt of the book that hasn't been published yet.
Oh, nice.
But my site has all my books and my program and all that stuff.
Excellent. Well, we'll put that in the show notes. Send people your way. Hey, again, thanks for reaching out to us. Thanks for blessing us with your time. And it's been a lot of fun, guys and gals. Go reach out. Find all his books on the websites that we'll put in the show notes. And hey, share this if this was impactful to you. Tell somebody about this podcast episode. Tell somebody about John David Mann. Go read his books. They will change your life, I promise you. And go build a storehouse.
Yeah, thank you again, John. Appreciate it, and much love to Anna. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Make it a great day, friends.
See ya.
Two things that I absolutely loved about this episode. One was when he talked about from a previous book he wrote with Brandon Webb. He said, how do you harness your fear and make it an ally, right? So that which you fight grows stronger. And it was the whole idea of getting after your fear, mastering your fear, which I think is the title of the book, mastering your fear. And it's not about this fight all the time. It's about harnessing it and making it an ally to drive you into action. And then this other thing, I'm going to steal it. You mentioned it, but I'm going to steal it from you is love first, suggestions second. Like I absolutely cherish what a gem. So you come into a situation and you love first, you love on whoever it is, you know, whether it's in the context of your group or whatever it is, coaching, you love on that person, you love on that book, you love on that thing. And then you provide your suggestions, right? And if we treat our wives, our kids, our friends that way, what a great place to come from.
Yeah, absolutely. Some gold bombs in today's show. You know, and hey, go read his books. Like his books are awesome. Like totally, like like I said in the show, like Go Giver Marriage has been a game changer for me, for my marriage and for the men in the Storehouse Mastermind. You know, so with that being said, we are opening up our next house. House 3 starts in September, and applications are ongoing right now. You can go to our website, hit the join now button, and be a kinetic man, right? Like do the stuff that John's talking about. Like take action, make a decision, and get after it. What do you think?
Giddy up. I love it because nothing's going to happen unless you do something, right? And it's the time for wishing and the time for wanting to be better and all these things. No, is it truly important or not? If the answer is yes, then do something about it, which I love because the world of opportunity and possibility is so huge if you're just willing to do something about it. So giddy up.
Giddy up. Bye now.
Thank you, friends, for listening to Filling the Storehouse. If you are growth-minded, community-focused, and willing to take uncommon action to redefine success and live an abundant life, visit our website at www.storehouse310.com to see all the ways we can connect.
Yeah, on our website, you can find information on everything we're doing, like joining our meetup page to get the details on our webinars and our local Thursday gatherings here in Colorado. From our site, you can also find information on and sign up for our next retreat. Finally, we always appreciate your love and support. Please share this episode and go rate us on your podcast player of choice.
Thank you again. Now go fill the storehouse.